Hi everybody, welcome to class this week, and welcome to just sort of the end chapters of Rob Preece's book on Psychology of Buddhist Tantra. So today we'll be looking at the second last chapter called Sacred Land. So we talked before about the mandala principle and so forth. Now we're just going to look in the idea, sort of a wider understanding of what that means, to have sort of a sacred land, sacred experience of the world, or sort of what we would also call sort of a pure, purified environment. Okay, starting with the Heart Sutra. Homage to perfection, wisdom, the Blessed Mother. Thus I have heard at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgir in Mass Vulture's Mountain, great assembly of monks and nuns, and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. At that time also Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, was looking perfectly the profound perfection of wisdom, looking perfectly also the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Then through power of Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to gain the prize of profound perfection wisdom? Thus he spoke, and Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, replied to Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to gauge the prize of profound perfection wisdom should look perfectly like this. Subsequent, looking perfectly and correctly also the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is none other than form is none other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, having no characteristics. They are not produced and do not cease. They have no defilement, no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mentality, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no tactile object, no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so forth, up to no mentality element, and also up to no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death, and no exhaustion of aging and death. Likewise, there is no suffering, origin, cessation, or path, no exalted awareness, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide in the perfection of wisdom. Their minds have no obstructions and no fear. Passing utterly beyond perversity, they attain the final nirvana. Also, all Buddhas reside perfectly in the three times, having relied upon the perfection of wisdom, became manifest, complete Buddhas in state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the equal to the unequal mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it's not false, should be known as the truth. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is proclaimed, Tayatam Gata Gata Paragata Samgati Buddhi Soha. Shariputra, bodhisattva, great being, should train the profound perfection of wisdom like this. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and said to Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, that he'd spoken well. Good, O son of the lineage, is like that. Since it's like that, just as you have revealed, in that way the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra, the Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, the great being, and the entire circle of disciples, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, and spirits, were delighted and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. Okay, so let's just take a moment to do a short meditation here, just to bless our minds and sort of receive the blessings of the Buddhists that we study here together on our class on Tantra. So let's just take a moment to visualize ourselves seated in a wide open space, and grounds like lapis lazuli, beautiful dome of a blue sky above us, and we're surrounded by all sentient beings of the six realms. Let's feel that our mother is on our left, our father on our right, people we love the most behind us as support, and the people we like least or have issues with in front of us as objects of our care and compassion. Moving up from there, from people from all over the world, different countries and cultures and so forth, especially places of great conflict, war, and suffering. Just to be able to send our healing, love energy, and wisdom energy their way. Feel that the whole natural environment is here, the animal realm. And we can just feel just the whole sort of natural world, like the earth is here, just, being trees and flowers and so forth. And small little beings from insects all the way to big mammals, birds, and fish, and so forth. All their spirits are here. All the beings in the spirit world are here as well. Just feel that all the different beings from the elemental planes, astral planes, ethereal planes, and so forth are here. Celestial beings, such as gods, goddesses, demigods, demigoddesses are here. And countless beings in lower states of rebirth, hell realms and hungry ghost realms are here meditating with us. Just like one big family of sentient beings practicing together. In the sky above us, like a beautiful blue sun here, is Conqueror Vajradhara, Buddha Shakyamuni's Sambhogakaya form, or beatific or angel form. And he's with a beautiful sort of blue body made out of energy or light, wearing a crown holding a Dorje bell and beautiful silks and jewelry and in lotus position. And at his heart is a beautiful Hum letter, H-U-M, on a sun disk. He is the embodiment of three jewels, the embodiment of all holy beings or light beings, and the embodiment of all of our teachers, spiritual teachers. So taking refuge and generating bodhicitta here. I and all sentient beings, until we achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings, to achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings, to achieve enlightenment, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Again, opening so it's just our hearts and minds to refuge in the three jewels, particularly Dharma jewel, wisdom realizing emptiness, and setting our bodhicitta intention that everything we're doing here today together is for the enlightenment of all sentient beings without exception. So taking a moment to generate love, compassion, joy, and equanimity here, wanting all beings to be happy, not wanting them to suffer, finding the joy of nirvana enlightenment. And again, I always sort of call out to that being sort of a positive, affirmative joy, that you get sort of almost like a Nietzschean creative joy of affirming everything and loving everything. And the equanimity being sort of that open, balanced, non-sort of judgmental mind, just open and friendly and sort of caring and accepting to all beings. So again, just opening our heart up. Settle in prayer here. With my body, speech, and mind humbly I prostrate and make offerings both set out and imagine. I confess my wrong deeds from all time and rejoice in the virtues of all. Please stay until samsara ceases and turn the wheel of Dharma for us. I dedicate all virtues to great enlightenment. A final offering here, just the mandala offering from our hearts here, visualizing a purified, beautiful universe that we're offering to all holy beings. The ground sprinkled with perfume and spread with flowers, the great mountain, four lands, sun and moon, seen as a Buddha land, and offered thus, may all beings enjoy such Buddha realms. We send forth this jewel mandal to you, precious gurus, all men and Guru Ratna Mandalakam, to Yami. Okay, we request just blessings from Conqueror Vajradhara. So beautiful blue light is coming down. Soft blue light. Again, it's almost like the sunshine you get right at dawn. They often compare clear light mind, experience of clear light mind, to sort of that ambient light you get at dawn. Here in Canada, you can get it in the wintertime, but also all over the world. Every place has its own different lighting. If you're in the south of France or India, Mexico, Finland, sort of up by the sort of northern sort of polar circle or whatever. There's all different lighting. But when you're up that early, and of course being a flight attendant doing shift work, a lot of times I'm up that early, and when you get that beautiful, just before the sun rises, there's sort of this sort of, especially in the winter or fall or springtime, where it's cool, sort of beautiful, luminous, but at the same time ambient light with no particular source. It's kind of everywhere. It's almost like a beautiful blue light. And everything's quiet. Things are just sort of waking up. Birds might be singing a little bit, but just before the whole world wakes up, and there's such a clarity and luminous quality to it, and awakeness. It's very, very special, and a silence a lot of times too. So just that experience of light coming from Vajradhar's heart into us. Grant us her blessings of body, speech, and mind. So it becomes just like a little shooting star, a blue shooting star, comes down to the crown of our head, slow, enters our crown chakra, and then descends to our heart, merging our mind with his mind here, one glass of water into another. Beautiful still ocean. Spaciousness, luminosity. Again, the openness that you get from an open heart to the world. Okay, so this chapter being called the Sacred Land chapter for Rob Preece's book here. So he starts just a little bit of a discussion on Jung's sort of understanding or his view on animism. And he calls it the animism of cultures that inhabit the world in which psychic reality is alive. Also called the participation mystique, where there's individual consciousness embedded in the collective world of nature, animated by archetypal forces that govern life. So there's different understandings of what animism would be. Oftentimes they say it's just the idea that everything in the world has a soul or soul energy or spirit energy. So what that looks like depends on different cultures and sort of different belief systems. On one level, I sort of consider myself a bit of an animist in that sense, as well as a vitalist in the sense that Gilles Deleuze, famous French philosopher I love very much, sort of defines it, the kind of vitalism that you get in Nietzsche, Spinoza, and Bergson, possibly even sort of the panpsychism you get in Alfred North Whitehead, for instance. But I don't want to sort of present that as sort of a cartoon silly view, that there's sort of like a soul energy poured into things, almost like pouring ketchup on a hamburger or something. It's more that everything is suffused, like at least animistically, with its own sort of symbolic character, or sort of almost sort of an ancestral or sort of collective energy for that particular thing. So we can talk about rock spirit, sun spirit, fish spirit, bird spirit, these kinds of things. So that I remember they interviewed on the radio once. It was a First Nations woman, and she said, was talking about sort of her traditional spirituality of her particular nation. And the host, I think it was on our national broadcaster, CBC, oh, so you believe in the spirit of the bear. And she said, that's a conceptual mistake. It's not like the spirit of the bear, that there's sort of a spirit like a ghost of bear that goes into different bears, but rather bear spirit, in the sense that the energy of being a bear, what it means to be a bear, the sort of bear symbolism, bear consciousness that's in the world of bears, but also can be in us and even other realities as well. So something, an animism, understanding things that way can be helpful. And I guess with vitalism, the idea that there's a power or energy to things. Spinoza says that how we differentiate things in the world is by their level of energy or level or power. What can they do? What effects can they have? Right? So everything's just a different typography and almost a hierarchy, but also horizontal nature of different kinds of forces or energies. You can study that in physics or anything else, but also in our own lives, what we have the power to be and have the power to do. So my mom used to have a fridge magnet, was by some First Nations saying, I think it might have been Cherokees, that said we can only be what we give ourselves the power to be, right? So our level of power determines our effects in the world on a spiritual and personal level. So Spinoza was always like, we have to empower ourselves by opening ourselves up to the world, having this sort of affirmative, creative way. That's why Nietzsche was very much enamored by a lot of Spinoza's ideas. So I look at vitalism and animism more that way. So when we talk about there being a soul or a spirit to things, I remember one of my friends, she might have been talking to First Nations people, where she said that at least in the Pacific Northwest, there was an idea that everything has a people or sort of like a collective awareness or consciousness or energy to it. So we would talk about the salmon people or the bear people or the eagle people, that it's actually eagles have a whole ancestral energy or a collective consciousness themselves. And I think Rudolf Steiner, famous theosophist and artist and architect and pedagogical creator, with sort of the Waldorf School, being sort of a person who wanted to forward Goethe's idea of science in the arts, had this idea that everything, almost on a Platonic level, has an archetype that you work with. So technically, all the animals have their own art, just like we do. So it's almost like a collective soul or a collective symbol that we work with. So, there is a collective archetype or a soul for, again, being a dog, being a bear or a cat, or being a person. And that sort of informs you, sort of almost like on a Platonic level. It's kind of interesting anyway. So there's a lot to be said here. But Jung says that, in dream time or spirit time awareness, this sort of collective psyche is all around us in the land, water, animals, and natural environment, and so forth. Now, of course, Jung says there's a separation from nature, and the archetypal forces, once experienced the world around us, have then been drawn back and buried in our collective unconsciousness. So we can see this, that when we look to older cultures or different cultures that have a world like this, we might in the West, in our sort of very secular, materialist, capitalist and consumer world, sort of look on that. Sometimes people look on it critically, but other people look on it favorably, or almost with a sense of nostalgia, that, it'd be wonderful to live in a world like that, this sort of world where you feel at home with other beings, sort of in this whole sort of home world. So what Jung says is we still have all those energies, archetypes or souls, animistic souls, but now they're just in our collective unconscious and working through archetypes and symbols in our own lives and in our culture. So these archetypal forces are manifestations or projections of the unconscious. They give us psychological understanding of why we see the earth, for instance, as a goddess or so forth. The symbolic projections rather than real outer entities. They give us individual power, but when we don't have this, it strips up the numinosity and experience of things without this sort of animistic idea, make our world and modern world very sort of arid or empty. So like I said, in sort of other cultures that are more vitalistic or animistic, this whole symbolic universe of soul energy, we participate in it, we share in it. So everything sort of intersects, or it's like Deleuze would call sort of a plane of immanence, where all these different energies create us, we share in them, and they work through us creatively, so we can call on them. In my own spiritual journey, I can call on Bear Spirit. I can interact, let's say, with sort of the eagle people, let's say, for help and guidance and wisdom, just like I, as a artist, let's say if I was a shaman or healer person in the world, I can give back in my own spiritual journey to this symbolic universe, this animistic universe, as well. Like we always talk about one way that this symbolic universe, animistic universe, vitalistic universe is giving to me, but technically the responsibility I have on an ethical or spiritual level is to give back as well and to help them. This is why you have, like in Shintoism, let's say when I'm in Japan all the time, go to Shinto shrines, there's this idea of giving offerings back to the spirit world or the kamis. They're helping us while we help them. So my one friend and teacher, Theodore Saucedas in Toronto, is very, very great Buddhist teacher and shaman, always talks about the shamanic idea of reciprocity, like a circle of giving, where the spirit world is giving us blessing, energy, and guidance and help. We have to give back as well to the spirit world. And we do this through our own practice and being a good person, but also through offerings we can make. So I've always thought it's the same thing. We talk about this in Vajrayana Buddhism. I notice that this is lacking a lot of times in Western Vajrayana centers, where people don't like making offerings because they see that this is just either culturally superstitious, maybe a little silly, old-fashioned, not necessary, because we understand things intellectually and abstractly, so we don't have to do offerings, right? Like, I don't want to set up the offering bowls. I don't need to make dharma offerings when I do pujas. Even when I do retreats, I don't need to do any of this because it's all kind of like a psychological mechanism anyway, where I'm just benefiting myself. It's too hard. I certainly don't want to learn all the traditional rituals and dharmas because, oh my goodness, it's too expensive, too hard, takes too much time, too complicated. Plus, that's just all sort of, let's say, Nepali, Tibetan, Mongolian stuff. We don't need, that's all cultural. So we can get rid of all of that. All I need to do is just put, like a few cookies out or something good enough. Or not even that. Like I can just sort of visualize a couple things. But really, when we're making these offerings, we are offering this sort of cycle of, or circle of reciprocity. We are giving back. And giving back's important. This is sort of even karmically. I'm creating the causes to receive blessings or guidance or care or help from the spirit world. So it's not like, sometimes I think it can be seen as an exchange, this very sort of market-driven thing or investment, like I'm, whatever, on my Uber app or Uber Eats, I'm paying out with my credit card and then, I want whatever, the Starbucks to come to my house right away or something. It's a little bit more deeper than that. What it in a lot of ways is doing is showing that you are interpenetrated and interbeing with this world. So we're giving and receiving, and there's all sorts of definitely sort of privileges of being part of this, but also obligations or ethical rules we have with the spirit world as well, which is why partial being a healer or shaman in old days is also being a bit of a judge, in the sense that working with rules or taboos of living together as being a member of this animistic universe. Okay, so in Tantra, the separation between the psyche and natural environment is indistinct. We keep the connection, the collective nature, or sort of collective psyche, but we start to develop this idea of conscious creative participation. The tantric practitioner tends to stand between these two worlds to bring about dialogue between the archetypal forces that pervade our reality and the individual psyche. This restores nature as something sacred. So we then return to the world where the psyche and soma, or sort of mind and body, or psyche and material, or consciousness as matter, are an intimate interrelationship. It's the proper understanding of subtle energy, sort of the inner and outer micro and macrocosms of the five elements. And we do this in and through our body, our mind, our body in particular, our subtle body. So again, just saying this is the idea of a sacred land. Tantra, because we're working with non-duality, it's the same you get in a lot of shamanic systems. I know in Taoism, with my wife Christina always talks about this, where we talk about the five elements, and which is the same actually in a higher tantric practice. We talk about the five elements or five pranas. It's very, very similar. So the five elements in the world are the same thing as in our body. There's a non-duality here. If I can control the five elements in my body, I can control them in the world. the 5 elements in the world karmically affect 5 elements in my body. The point is that myself, in sort of a wider sense of myself, not my ego, and the universe are one thing, right? So in a lot of ways, there are sort of more shamanic elements to Tantric Buddhism, where you end up on a more conventional level interacting with the spirit world through your practice. By opening this sort of door through your practice, you start to interact with sort of a wider understanding of the universe, almost animistically, or when we're working with our pranas and with chi, vitalistically as well. Our chi in our body is the same thing, or chi or prana, that's outside our body. We're affected by the outside pranas of the 5 elements, and again, we can affect the prana of the outside elements by sort of cultivating and practicing with the energy within ourselves. That's why we can do healings and purifications of ourselves that affect the outside environment. And great practitioners can do that. And that's why they say when great practitioners, yogis, yoginis show up to a place, like the vital energy gets boosted. All of a sudden flowers start blooming, people's crops are better, that water becomes pure, animals want to come and be around the place where that person or yogi or yogini is. The spirits start to come to help. Even ones that are negative might be attracted vampirically to feed off that energy or attack it. But then if it's high practitioners, once they're there, even their minds can be transformed and become more peaceful and less hostile. So as you can see back here with the Tonkas, Master Labdron, and Troma Nagmo, of course, we're Kasina Iron Chid practitioners. And in the sort of Chid universe in Tibetan Buddhism, it's very much interacting with the spirit world along these lines here. But again, this is based really on an idea of breaking down that dualistic distinction between ourselves and the world. We start to see that we are one thing. So our own tantric practice of non-duality, of pure view, ends up making the world a more sacred place. We start to see that the world's always already been a sacred place, and our purity of mind, purity of vision, makes it more and more sacred. We can do healing work on ourselves and others around it. So an example that Rob Preece gives is the idea of a body mandala, which in certain higher yoga, like high yoga tantra practices, you get this. And this is the relationship of the outer and inner forces that allows healing to take place. The outer land's health manifests through dakas, nikinis, and blesses, and heals the inner energies. The land then is experienced as a mandala, and this is very elemental. So on an elemental level, as a practitioner, we can be aware of the health or sickness of the world, even in terms of our own health or sickness. Whether, like for instance, the health of the world, if there's contamination, as a practitioner, we can feel that within our body, and vice versa. By healing our own contamination, sickness, it starts to have an effect on the external world. So even with the body mandala, if I visualize myself as a deity, with all what happens with the body mandala is the very parts of my body become deities themselves. Right? Different pranas or parts of my body become sort of our own, almost like I'm a Christmas tree with little toys in it, or a tree with birds in it. These things, so it's like the part of my body itself becomes a deity, and then you invoke a deity into that blessing. So there's a non-duality that happens there. And again, the microcosm and the macrocosm all become one. And so, your body itself becomes what they call a spirit house. So a lot of times in shamanism, what we do is I've studied, not that well, of course, but Siberian or Buryat shamanism, and a number of amazing books on that. So what a lot of times shamans will do is they'll create spirit houses to bless a person's home or protect it or so forth. They'll create a little totem or some kind of artifact, and then invoke spirits that go into it, that live in that little house, almost like a birdhouse that helps the person's home or so forth. And you can bring healing, becomes an interface of the spirit world in our world, and shows their unity, right? So what a shaman does in a lot of ways is, a shaman themselves, when they go into trance, they channel, they become a spirit house themselves for the spirits. Spirits work through them to do healing or to do prophecy or oracle work or to mediate. A lot of ways that you can sort of pass messages or become the focus or kind of like the computer screen, so to speak, between our world, like, an email or a chat, like an AI chat or whatever, between our world and the spirit world. You become the interface for that, in an interface of healing and dialogue, showing that oftentimes where there's problems is when the spirit world or our world feel that they're not together, right? Not one thing. So as a shaman, you can demonstrate that, the non-duality of this. So that's what we're doing when we're doing Tantric Buddhism. And when we're doing a body mandala practice, it's that same principle where we become like a spirit house for these mandala or these deities. The pure lands of the Buddhists become channeled or become in our land right here, right? I bring the mandala down into my very body because my body and the mandala are the same thing. Everything is a sacred land. Right? In a lot of ways, we have seen that our soul becomes like a world soul. The world soul is our soul. So again, the practice of Tantra isn't separate from nature. Nature provides the vitality that is its essence. So again, the more you start practicing Tantra this way, sort of the more shamanic elements start to rise, and a practical way of doing this practice, not theoretically, but in a practical way of doing it. And you start to see, again, that everything is a sacred land within, the sacred land without. You start to see that that inner-outer distinction is no longer valid. Everything is one. Everything is in a pure mandala or a pure land that you end up living in. And again, that this is sort of the Zen thing where you start seeing the holiness of nature, the beauty of nature, beauty of doing your Zen garden, beauty of doing Chan poetry, Chinese poetry from the Tang Dynasty, seeing the beauty in Zen or Chan of the mountains, of the springs, of the clouds, of the flowers, and so forth. The Flower Sutra of Makasapa, like seeing Buddha hold up the flower and seeing the emptiness of that, the purity of everything, the beauty of everything, the sacredness of everything. So nature itself, because you start to see you and nature, or you and the cosmos, or this Greek idea of cosmos, that we're part of a cosmos, we're part of this symbolic, sacred, and animistic universe. The vitalism that gives you inspiration, gives you energy, gives you creativity, gives you power, gives you force to open your heart and manifest this kind of beauty and enlightened energy. So there we go. That's the idea of a sacred land in Tibetan Buddhism and in Rob Preece's book, and that sort of Jungian idea of animism and the animistic symbolic universe. So there we go. Let's just take a moment to dedicate this for the enlightenment of all sentient beings. So we can say, through blessings of all holy beings, the truth of causes and their effects, the power of our bodhicitta intention, may all of our dharma wishes be fulfilled, and all sentient beings reach awakening. Okay, thank you, and see you next time.